2009 was a dark time for 2D Metroidvanias. Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night were both distant memories, and the only system really keeping the 2D genre alive was the Game Boy, with a couple of different Castlevania and Metroid options. Home consoles only really had the Metroid Prime games, as well as Batman Arkham Asylum to keep us going. When Shadow Complex came out, it was the first large-budget console-exclusive Metroidvania in 2D in a long time, and it was a breath of fresh air. To be honest, I can't actually remember if the term Metroidvania was even a thing back then, but even so, the comparison was there. Shadow Complex took what we loved about Super Metroid, cleaned up the graphics, added a modern plot, half of a dimension, and ended up winning over 50 Game of the Year awards as well as Editor's Choice awards, and this was back in 2009 when we actually kind of cared about those things. It was such a hit and so much fun that it kind of revitalized the genre and opened up the gates for bigger and better things to come down the road, including the Ori franchise as well as Hollow Knight. So with all that being said, why does no one still talk about it? I've been watching a lot of Metroidvania reviews and tier lists and stuff like that, and it very rarely, if ever, is even mentioned or brought up. And so I'm just curious, like, how did a game go from revitalizing a genre and being one of, if not the best-selling Xbox Live Arcade game of its type, to total obscurity? Shadow Complex was released on August 19, 2009 by Chair Studios, in association with Epic Games and Microsoft Studios. It was originally an Xbox Arcade exclusive, but a remaster was released for Windows and PlayStation 4 in 2016. The game was originally met with high praise, which resulted in high sales and even broke some sales records upon the week that it was released. Shadow Complex still holds a score of 88% on Metacritic, but those scores are from 2009 and 2016 mostly, and I wanted to know, how does this game hold up in 2025? Shadow Complex takes place in an underground military complex where you are severely outnumbered and outgunned. Jason Fleming has previous training, and we get to see it on full display as he shoots, sneaks, and melees his way through waves and waves of faceless enemies. Every time you melee somebody from a different angle or different speed, you get a new animation for taking them out. It was really fun to watch over and over again as you realized how many different animations there actually are, and trying to find all the different ways that you can approach an enemy. These tiny little details are greatly appreciated over the course of a long game. You start off with nothing but a flashlight, but quickly acquire a handgun and slowly work your way up to being a one-man army. Every time you pick up a new gun, you put down your old one, and at first I was a little bit disappointed to not have access to both my pistol and my Uzi, but they use the same ammunition and they fulfill the same role, so it's essentially a straight upgrade, so it's fine. Once you acquire all the secret gold stashes, you unlock a chamber at the very beginning of the game with all of the different guns and your suit in it. So if you really wanted to, you can switch back to your pistol then, but realistically you'll be done the game by the time you get all those things anyways, so it's not really necessary. However, I did just start a brand new play of this game, and that room was open to me right from the very beginning, as was my level, so it was interesting to see that there's not really a new game plus, but you also can't start the game from scratch ever again. Like, once you've beaten the game, it seems like every time you start a new game, you are kind of starting from the very beginning, but with everything you've already learned. Like, the map is complete, the access to that room with all the guns is there, your level is there, which increases things like your ability to aim and whatnot. So there's no real way to play this game for the first time ever again, which is kind of disappointing. But if you like the new game plus mode and you want to try to get to level 50, it's kind of cool that it's just automatically there. So kind of depends on how you want to interpret this game or how you want to play it. For me personally, I'd rather start from scratch every time, and if I want to play a new game plus, have an option for new game plus. As far as I can tell though, every game is new game plus and you don't get a say in it, and that's a little weak. Now, I mentioned they added half of a dimension. What I mean is you can actually aim into the background as well as up, down, and left and right and all the other things you can do, which does give this game kind of a 2.5D element, which makes the world feel slightly bigger than it truly is. It's kind of cool, but it doesn't really aim as well as you would like it to. There are lots of times where I could hit the enemies no problem, and other times where it just felt like I was flailing wildly. There's even a few sections where you can actually go into first person mode and just kind of light up the entire room full of enemies, which is cool, but it felt more gimmicky than truly purposeful. This game is heavily inspired by Super Metroid specifically, and it can be felt in the upgraded weapons and how they work with all the doors and the vents and the ways to get from room to room. Now in Super Metroid, all those doors are naturally color coordinated, so if you see a green door, you know you're gonna need a super bomb. super missile, whatever, red doors and missile, stuff like that. The same thing is true in this game. However, you do need a flashlight to be able to uncover that. So when you're walking down a hallway, you might miss a vent, not realizing that you can shoot it open because it looks like the rest of the world. However, as soon as your flashlight touches it, it will glow the exact color of the weapon you need to open it, which is a really nice way of making the world still feel complete, but also helping a player out when they do need to be like, where am I going? What am I doing? Oh, it's red. I need a missile. Cool. It's a really, really nice system, and I kind of wish more games would adopt it, where you can see the world exactly how he's supposed to see it, or you can see the world through a video game lens. I really liked it. The missiles and the dash are direct copies from Super Metroid, as are lots of other things in this game, such as the double jump and things like that. You can get a triple jump in this game, which is kind of nice, but realistically the double jump will get you almost anywhere you need to go. The grenades and the foam do add a little bit extra to the mix. The foam expands and will burst doors open in that way, as well as can create a sticky surface that your grenades can stick to. You don't use it all that often in the game, or at least I didn't, but it is a pretty fun mechanic. Most of the enemies in this game are one-hit kills, and the challenge comes from actually the number of them, as well as finding the right angle at which to hit them. The bosses are much cooler looking. They're all generally some form of a mech or something, and as a sci-fi nerd, I really liked that. However, most of them were speed bumps as opposed to actual fights. In fact, most of the combat in this game is basically just speed bumps. Much like in Super Metroid, I didn't find the combat in this game to be all that engaging. It's totally serviceable, it works really well, and obviously it fits the narrative, but at no point was I looking forward to the next fight so I could test out my new weapon. They all just kind of happen, and most of the time you just hit them a couple of times and move on with your life. The combat is there, it works perfectly, everything is fine, it's just not engaging. You're not looking forward to the next fight like you might be in something like a Hollow Knight or a Silksong, where the fights are like one of the main things keeping you going and you're looking forward to them. In this, they're just kind of like, oh, a fight, okay, it's over, and you move on. I just didn't find them challenging in that way. There's not a whole lot else to say about combat. It's completely competent, it's even fun at times, but it's never really hard. It's never really engaging in that way, and by the end, you do feel like a complete badass. I just wish some of the enemies would test you a little bit more than they actually do. The entire game takes place below a man-made lake where you investigate the complex. On the plus side, this is a smart and contained environment. It definitely feels like something out of a 90s James Bond movie, and not in a bad way. The map is incredibly handy in this game, but not overbearing. I like how you get to choose how much you want to show you. For instance, you can have the objective turned on so you know exactly where you want to go. You can have a line drawn between you and the objective so you know how to get there, or you can turn those off and just explore the world in your own way. Now again, because I said this game, the second playthrough, is kind of like a new game plus, the entire map was open to me the second I started playing it, and that kind of took away from the sense of exploration the second time around. Now, if you're playing this game twice back to back, you might not really care about that. But if you take 4 or 5 years off in between and then you go back to playing this game again, having the entire map right there available for you, having all the weapons in that first door could really, for me at least, turn me off. Now, that might be totally different for you, but this is my review, and in my review, I didn't like that that was not an option I could take off. Granted, the room with the guns, totally optional. You can just not go in that room. That's totally fine. But there was no way I could see to turn the map off so that I could only explore rooms that I had not been through on this playthrough. But for a first playthrough, really not a big deal. The map doesn't have any fast travel options per se, or not in the traditional sense, but one of the certain upgrades you can traverse the map very, very quickly. It's kind of the speed burst from Super Metroid. It's a running effect that can make you go incredibly fast. It works really handy if you go all the way to the top of the map where the lake is, you can jump over large portions of the map, or in the very basement where the mines are, you can jump large portions of the map. However, you do have to get to one of those 2 locations, and even then it's not a perfect way to get around, but it does help. I did wish there was some sort of a teleportation system in here, but it's okay. The controls feel solid and the upgrades all work incredibly well, so traversing the map never feels tiresome, and often it's just a joy to run around the map, guns a-blazing, just shooting enemies, having them going flying everywhere. It's a total power fantasy for a sci-fi nerd like me, and I really enjoyed it. But again, would love a teleport system somewhere on the map. Also on the map, you can see almost every power-up in the game, so 100%ing this game is actually fairly easy, albeit pretty unnecessary. You can definitely beat the story long before you find every upgrade, but if you do want to find all the upgrades, there's question marks in every area where you can find something, and then it's just up to you to actually figure out where exactly it is. There's one missile container that I'm missing and no question marks on my map, so it must be hidden in some sort of a room that I can't quite find just yet, and that's the only thing keeping me from 100%ing this game. And honestly, as I mentioned in my last video, I'm just not that much of a completionist. I don't really care that much. Would it be nice to find that one last missile? Sure. but the game held my hand well enough. I got to 99 point something%. I'm fine. Overall, the exploration is fun and rewarding, but the environment itself does get kind of stale. With most Metroidvanias, the biomes change fairly drastically, even if they do still retain the same core aesthetic to let you know at a glance what game you're playing. In Shadow Complex, it does more than hold the same core aesthetic. It's a lot of almost the exact same hallways and doors. Now they do change a little bit, but you are always, well, almost always in this one complex. There's the mines at the bottom and there's the lake at the top, but for the most part, you are always in the same area and it always feels like the same area. Admittedly, playing the game myself, I didn't really even run up against this, but as soon as a commenter, when I was playing this live, we record this live over twitch.tv/Mongolia Show. When I was playing this live, one of my viewers mentioned that, and I couldn't shake it once I saw it. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Everything looks the exact same, and it does get kind of monotonous over the course of the game. Lots of Metroidvanias will have an opening scene where the protagonist is already fully powered with all their power-ups and upgrades and stuff like that to give you a sense of what is to come later on in the game. Then they have some convoluted way to take all that power away from you and spread it across the map, and then you need to go and find those upgrades. In Shadow Complex, you get to play as a totally different person in a tech suit, and you get a little bit of feeling of that power as you fight a helicopter in the opening sequences before it is logically taken away from you, and then you have to start again as your actual protagonist. I really liked this. This was definitely a same way. This was a good way to do the same thing, but in a way that makes some sense to me. You don't have, death ripping it away from you or a crash landing, dropping stuff all over the planet, and I was pretty okay with it. Jason Fleming is no slouch as far as protagonists go, but to start his adventure, all we know about him is that he's going on a hike with the first date. She says she wants to play hide and seek, and she disappears, and you follow with a flashlight, but she quickly gets caught by the enemies, and your journey instantly has purpose. The further into the complex you go to try and find Claire, the deeper the conspiracy gets. The story is completely serviceable, but not terribly compelling, and you always know what you're doing and where you need to go, but I just didn't really connect with Jason or Claire. And that's fine. I didn't actively dislike the story or the characters, mind you. I just feel that the gameplay and exploration is where this game actually shines, and the story is just kind of there. It's just serviceable. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not the reason you're going to be playing. There are multiple guns, suits, and weapons upgrades to find during your time with Shadow Complex. Jason gets significantly stronger as the game goes on, as you would expect from a game in this genre. You start off collecting basic things like climbing gear, a flashlight, a pistol, and by the end you have a fast shooting shotgun, a friction dampener allowing you to run at incredible speeds, and a fusion helmet that can make you immune to some damage. The upgrades come fairly quickly, and this is a relatively short game by modern standards, so you do have a lot of that constant dopamine hit of finding new things. Most items even show up on your map, so you will always know when something is nearby, even if you don't currently have the gear to acquire it. None of the upgrades in this game feel particularly new to the genre, but they work so well that the experience is fun regardless. If I haven't said it enough by now, this game is heavily inspired by Super Metroid. And having played both in a relatively short span, it really changed my impression of this game. When Super Metroid came out, it was fairly groundbreaking in 1994, and when this game came out, it felt really fresh in 2009 because we hadn't seen anything like it recently. However, now that the Metroidvania genre is pretty alive and well, there's a lot of other games to compare this to, and unfortunately, I don't know that it holds up quite as well as I'd like it to. There's nothing wrong with that. This game does a really good job of doing all those things well, but it doesn't really add anything new to the genre, unfortunately. I have incredibly fond memories of playing Shadow Complex, and I even started this review off by asking the question, why is nobody talking about this game anymore? Well, I think I can safely say after replaying the game in 2025, it just doesn't hold up. It still looks fine, the controls are solid, and it does nothing wrong, but with so many games in the genre doing things just better or more innovative things, I just can't really recommend this game all that highly anymore. The classics are there for a reason, they did it first, and the new games are doing it better, and Shadow Complex is sadly just there in the middle. This might be the best example I have of a mid game. It does everything fine, there's nothing bad about it, but it also never tries to break the mold or do anything all that interesting. And so, with a heavy heart, I have to admit that if I take my nostalgia glasses off, Shadow Complex Remastered is coming in at a 7 out of 10. Which is actually a really solid score, don't get me wrong, but in my mind's eye, this was like a 9.5. I thought this game was perfect. And then replaying it, it really lost some of that luster. It does nothing wrong, but it does nothing great either. All right, that's my review of Shadow Complex Remastered. I still really enjoyed it, just not as much as I remembered enjoying it. Leave a comment down below. Was I right? Was I wrong? What did I miss? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. If you know of a Metroidvania you'd love for me to review, leave a comment down below. I am currently working my way through Hollow Knight for the second time and Silksong for the first time. I'm not going to rush those reviews though. I'm going to take my time with those ones, but I would love to do one in between now and then. So let me know down below what you'd love to see. We record videos like this at twitch.tv/themongoolie every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, so you can head over there and click the follow button so you can see when we go live and hang out with me over there. Or if you made it this far in the video, you probably enjoyed it, hit that like button and hit subscribe so that I see you in the next one.